Hello, today is Friday, May 8th. Welcome to episode 593 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI Senior Fellow Morgan Vigna. I'm joined today by Advisory Board member Lester Munson and Senior Fellows John Lipsey and Matt Hayden. Okay, y'all. Tomorrow, Russians celebrate Victory Day, which is the anniversary of the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany. Russian President Vladimir Putin has made this holiday somewhat like a cult-like religious experience with a victory parade and lots of fanfare. However, the Ukrainians are putting a bit of a damper on this celebration. Ukrainian drone strikes across Russia, including on Moscow, are forcing Putin into a more understated fiesta. Parade organizers citing security threats have eliminated the display of armored vehicles and the march by military cadets. Cell phone and internet services are also expected to be disrupted in Moscow for days, so there goes social media. Russians are also starting to take note that the war in Ukraine has dragged on longer than Russia's war against Nazi Germany. There are also whispers of Putin not living up to expectations, noting his age and disassociation from reality. Relatedly, things are not going very well for Putin in Ukraine. Russians are being sent to the front lines and are being killed faster than their replacements can be recruited. Ukrainians, despite suffering through a brutal winter, have demonstrated extreme resilience and holding strong. So, to kick us off today, I'm going to start with Lipsey. All right, Lipsey. Putin is a bully. We know this, and even bullies have their Achilles heels. In this case, it seems to be Putin's own vanity. Are we seeing Putin on defense here with the downgrading of this event? Has Putin unwittingly exposed himself?
Yeah, I think it most significantly just demonstrates what the success that Ukraine has had over the last couple months of striking deep into Ukraine and really changing some of the fundamentals of the conflict and clearly striking personal fear into Putin. And I think it's just remarkable that he called President Trump asking for a ceasefire for him to hold off this event, which, to your point, they have had to significantly downgrade from the past. They're not deploying the military hardware and troops into the streets for the large event. They're constraining the media coverage. They are not hosting foreign delegates in the way they did in the past. And so I think that this is coming on the backs of just a series of bad turns for Russia over the last year or so. Just to rattle off a few, of course, Russia lost Syria in a momentous turn of events. Some of the countries in their neighborhood that they had leaned on or counted on in the past are increasingly distancing themselves. So you had both Azerbaijan and Armenia hosting Zelensky in the last week, uh, uh, striking defense industrial agreements and the like. You had obviously the Hungary election go against Putin's wishes and preferences. You have Slovakia supporting Ukraine's EU membership. And then we also saw recently, their ability to support governments in Africa with the group formerly known as the Wagner Group has taken a real hit in Mali, where they were embarrassed and had to retreat from certain parts of northern Mali within the last couple of weeks. So a number of things starting to paint a picture of a Russia that is in decline and operating in a more constrained environment than what any of us would have described just a year ago. And so the trend lines are extremely negative for President Putin. There is plenty of chatter around um, uh, you know coups and declining popular support and the like. I'll let Les jump in on that a bit more. Hard to know what to make of all of that at this stage. Just one other thing I might mention, the the Iran war, I think in its early days, many in the West were describing it as a boon to Russia, because in part because it was reduced, there were temporarily reduced sanctions on certain Russian oil fleets, and um, and so that let me start over there. Um, I think the Iran war has also taken a different turn than Putin and many in the West maybe initially expected. Initially, there was a lot of discussion that it was a boon to Russia because of reduced sanctions and because it was bogging down the United States. I think what's actually been interesting is Ukraine has been able to really take advantage of this moment in being sort of the arms supplier for the Middle East and for Europe, and has Zelensky stepped up immediately in support of the war against Iran. He spoke out in favor of President Trump and urged on the Europeans. So the Ukrainians have demonstrated themselves in several respects as the type of model ally that President Trump is looking for, and it's led to dramatic investment deals from Saudi Arabia and the UAE and others, and so I think that has also turned the tables a bit for Ukraine and its relationship with the president. He, in the last 2 days, has said he's always liked Zelensky, and the State Department also announced very publicly a new deal to supply JDAMs to Ukraine. And so I think that was sending a strong signal to Putin, likely in response to the reports that we've seen around Russia supporting Iran with intelligence for targeting U.S. troops and the like. So I think we might be seeing a little bit of a turn out of the Trump team in how they're thinking about Ukraine as someone that they maybe can back in a different way, someone who's demonstrating that they can win on the battlefield.
So, Lipsy, I think that's a really good point. And one sort of issue I want to sort of go into is that yes, Russia is experiencing some major challenges, including economically, which we didn't get into. But Russia is still nevertheless pretty dangerous here, right? I mean, we see the devastation they are continuing to cause in Ukraine. They are supplying Iran with intelligence, satellite imagery for potentially U.S. Military targets. So that is highly problematic. We're also seeing the threat of Russia, in Europe, and the targeting of opposition leaders and those political figures that would challenge the Putin regime. So Matt, turning to you here, how do you see Russia's influence globally and the damage it could potentially do, particularly as it's flailing in Ukraine?
So if we think of Russia as Bad Guys Incorporated and we look at them as a company, they are not expanding right now. And the reason they're not expanding is they have a lack of leadership. They have a challenge that's constricting their own ability to grow. And when we look at that, we start thinking, okay, where would they traditionally be expanding? So we look at things like cyber. We look at their loose partnerships with Safe Harbor, criminal actors across the entire globe, but the ones that are camped out in their backyard. And we're just not seeing that escalation that traditionally would come forward. And it gives that perspective that kind of irons out the way the Lipsy was talking about. There is this constriction, but we're waiting for a lash out. We're waiting for something to where there's this definition of I still have power, but with the execution just hasn't been there. We're looking to see right now how does that play on a global stage, and most of those metrics are that it's showing Russia kind of building to be more resourceful in the future as opposed to lashing out now. And so we're also not expecting. I'm not expecting Russia to make any kind of agreements or things that are anything more than just elongating negotiation to build that ramp back up to what we would consider kind of a full powered Russia, because right now they're definitely behaving as constricted.
Mm-hmm. All right, Munson, where do you see Putin going here? Are we going to see a palace coup anytime soon?
Maybe. Let me first jump off of something John Lipsey said, which is an opportunity to tell one of my favorite West Africa jokes. Russia, might be here today, gone to Mali. Okay. Thank you. It's Fun Friday.
I just want to agree with Morgan's face right now.
Thank you. Here today, gone to Mali, the country of Mali. It was it's been humiliating for Russia. They're losing to Al Qaeda in Mali. It's a remarkable thing. I would add to your list, though, John. They also lost in Venezuela, and they may be losing in Cuba. The Trump administration, supposedly in thrall with Putin and all things Russian, has been horrible for Russia and Putin, net at the end of the day. And I think folks are going to need to kind of internalize that a little bit more than maybe they have already. There's some lot of interesting aspects to this for sure. These coup rumors appear to be real. Putin's been spending time in bunkers. He's not staying in his normal places. He's clearly afraid of some sort of attack from the Ukrainians. He may be afraid of getting stabbed in the back by his own people. When you're a strong man, when you're a bully, if you show any weakness, that's when you're vulnerable. He has to win in Ukraine to survive, or at least appear to win in Ukraine. And right now it appears he's losing. There's also the issue of casualties. The lower estimates are 200,000 Russian dead in Ukraine over the last few years of this war in Ukraine. The number could be as high as 300,000. Total casualties, including wounded, could be over 1 million Russians. That's going to have a real impact at some point. And if it looks like Putin is losing this war at the expense of so much blood, this could be coming back around on him. I do think the appearance and the reality of Russia providing assistance to Iran in the war, which is the most important thing to President Trump right now, clearly has definitely impacted where the Trump administration is going on these issues. I think they're going to do it quietly because they don't want to provoke, the folks in their base who may have slightly alternative views on this stuff. But I think the crisis for Putin appears to be real. A lot of really smart observers of the situation are saying that these reports, which can be misleading, frankly, appear to be real, and there's a lot of evidence supporting them. So we might be seeing some really important developments in Moscow with respect to Putin here in the near future.
All right. That is a wrap. Thank you to Sophie Wagner, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Monday, May 11th, which happens to be Morgan Vigna and Stephen Vigna's anniversary, for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We are on YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episode and my response to Les's dad jokes. If you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.